heard today that I wanted to chat to you about and get your views on, knowing that you're one of my more tech-savvy friends,
Okay.
I would say.
Yes.
But it was a guy who's like one of the ex-lead people in Google, and he came out and said that he thinks that humans are going to be hiding from AI by 2036.
Humans are going to be hiding from AI in the next 7 months.
2036?
I say it's 2036.
No, 2036.
I have great comfort. This is how I sleep at night.
Right.
During AI. Is that... Did we talk about this before? Maybe I've just said it out loud before.
I don't think so.
Is that the internet is going to become... already has become, to a large degree, filled with AI content.
Is this a dead internet theory?
Sort of. But the point is that there'll be so much AI drivel that exists on the internet, and AI pulls from that drivel, that it'll become obsolete as a result.
It becomes self-perpetuating in its own stupidity. I think that is only going to be the case. I don't think it's going to be the case for artificial general intelligence. So at the minute we don't have AGI. We've just got like an artificial intelligence that's based on like language models and stuff.
Yep.
So it's basically just trying to predict the next thing based on other things that it's seen in the past.
Yep.
But it's already, I think ChatGPT now has an IQ of 155. So it's like, and they said within the next year it'll like basically surpass all human intelligence. And that's, once it gets to there, it's really like...
I just don't know. I mean, the thing is that I hear you, and it makes perfect sense. But just going on vibes...
You fucking love going on vibes, though, and it's something...
It served me so well these 36 years.
Yeah, but sometimes it serves you well, and sometimes other people just have to go, no, Nate's doing his fucking vibes thing. Let's go sort this out. Like... At your wedding, when you were like, "Oh yeah, everything's gonna be great. It's all vibes," and then
it didn't turn out grand.
Yeah, there was me and the other lad there. And oh Jesus, the HDMI is not working. This cable's in the wrong place, and that the people showed up. They don't have anything for the PA system. But it's only for the fact that I was like, Nathan, vibes don't work. No, let's have spare shit.
You've missed the point of the vibes now. At your wedding, I didn't have to do anything of any notes like that, but I would be ready to, and you know that vibes. So you would freak out and be worried about it, but it would always be grand.
But it wouldn't. But
it always turns out grand.
No, it always turns out something.
Historically, turned out grand.
lots of things don't turn out grand. Just because you come through the other side of it doesn't mean that it works out grand.
See, this is the beauty of our differences of opinion here, is that I entirely disagree with that. Everything at the very end of it all has turned out grand in some way.
That's just not how it works.
It is though.
Anyway,
no, I know what you're saying, and that AI is going to get more and more advanced and more, and you're worried about the robot part of it, the iRobot situation where they become cognizant, and
not even the robot part of it. Like,
no, I'm just saying the idea of it where they start to attack us in whatever way.
Yeah, but there's been instances of AIs, because there are people that are like training up AIs but can see the back end of what the AI is thinking, and there's instances of the AI trying to trick people that are like training it up and telling it the things that it has to do, and it working out in its head that if I do this, then they're going to replace me with the next version. So then they're taking their own
pray for mojo situation.
Yes, so they're like the AI took itself, copied itself into the different folder that was supposed to be the new thing that was replacing it, so that it would just get replaced back into where it was, and then acted like everything was fine to the people that was telling it to replace itself. It was like, yeah, no worries. And then on the back end, they could see that the thought process was, if I do this, then I'm going to stop existing. So I got to make sure that I keep on existing so that I can complete the tasks that I need to complete.
At what point do you consider that AI has a soul, so to speak, that is a sentient, self-aware being? Because the thing is that even what you're saying right now, it's acting that way, but it has the capacity to find information on how to act that way from human.
Yeah.
And it can make those leaps. So it's still really just copying. It's not actually thinking. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't know. It's interesting because it wasn't made so that it would have a self-preservation instinct, but it was made so that it would do whatever it had to do to complete the task that it had to complete. But then it was able to reason its way in the self-preservation by saying, I can't complete the task if I don't exist, so I have to make sure that I prioritize my own existence. So it was able to find a loophole in its own programming to have self-preservation, which seems like a very natural thing. It seems like it's probably what happened biologically as well.
Yeah.
You know, with like the building blocks of life.
But that's what I'm saying, is that it has that information. Like, it's got that from us.
But I don't know at what point, like, we talk about animals. Like, when does an animal have a soul? Like,
what are you talking about? All animals have souls.
All animals have souls.
It's a madness. What are you
have
spiking?
souls.
Are you saying only some have souls, and you've made this distinction? Yeah. Which ones do you think have souls?
Well, I don't think flies have souls.
I think flies have souls.
You think flies have souls?
Yeah, 100%.
You think flies go to heaven?
I mean, you've gone too far on the go to heaven.
I've gone too far
on the go to heaven part, but I'm saying, like,
you think that there's a piece of them.
It's an organic living being. I think plants have souls.
You think plants have souls?
Yeah.
You're cooked.
I'm cooked. I'm done.
You're gone. Does the TV have a soul?
That's not an organic living being.
Well, how do you know?
Because it's not.
You know what I mean? If we're just going to talk nonsense, if we're going to say that plants have souls.
Well, if you can't go as far,
does the guitar have a soul?
Where do you stop?
You know, but the guitar can make you feel something. Does the guitar have a soul?
That's not what an organic living being is. The definition of it is.
Instill this in the other things, like.
But I'm curious where your parameters are exactly. So do spiders have souls?
I would say no.
What about like a big tarantula looking boy? Like a pet tarantula that like cuddles up to its owner and stuff, and they're all no. So arachnids in general don't have souls.
I would say no.
What about, we're a good lizard family here, so we're talking about a gecko. Are we in soul territory yet?
I think you got to see. I think I need to see something that's not just going through the basic. You know, what do you call it, Mrs. Nerg or something? You know, those like 7 things.
Hierarchy of needs?
No, not the hierarchy of needs. The 7 things that something has to do to be considered living. So there is, like respiration and excretion and reproduction and growth and some other thing. But that is just what is needed to be considered a living thing. So everything from viruses are just about there. But from viruses through bacteria, through fungi, through plants, through animals, they all have to meet all of these needs to be considered a living thing rather than an inanimate thing. So I think you need to go beyond that to see something that's not just going through living processes. It needs to be doing something more than that. So what that is, I don't know if it's
give me an example.
If it's seeing like playfulness, you know, like I went vegetarian for a long time back in like 2018 because I was doing a lot of work out in fields and stuff. In the field beside there was all these newborn calves and they were all like playing with each other and playing with their mother.
So
and
calves have souls.
I think cows have souls.
Cows. I agree. No, obviously.
Yeah. I know you fucking think. You think anything has a soul?
Wait, I'm just trying to find your
soul slut.
Is it a size thing?
No.
It's a playfulness thing.
I think it's showing that you have the capacity for something more than just trying to exist and reproduce. And consume and exist and reproduce. If you're just doing that.
Putting on my Nile hat for a second.
Okay.
instead of Matlock Durcat. Like, the reason that calves play with their mothers and mothers play with their calves, more to the point, is the same extent as like our folk stories, where it's just cautionary of like, here's what you do in this scenario. It's just preservation still. They're still in the same. They haven't gone any further. I'm trying to.
No,
I'm
I don't think
trying
that's
to
the
like
case.
go from your viewpoint. But that is the case, though.
No.
That all that behavior is learned behavior and the survival of the fittest, so to speak. That's what these animals behave like this because it serves them a purpose. Even cats, like you probably obviously think the cats have souls. You're a cat man, like I am. But everything
I've met some cats.
But everything they do, whether I like it or not, is in some form of self-preservation.
No, not always. I think lying on a sunbeam, I don't think that's self-preservation.
That's just good practice. But
I think
if a spider did that,
chasing their fucking tail, I don't think that's.
But if a big spider did that, you wouldn't think that.
No.
What if a spider just makes a wee heart out of his web?
Well, if a spider did that, I would reconsider my position. I would reconsider my position. If you can show me that, if you can show me Charlotte's Web in real life, I'll go, well, you know what, maybe...
I hate spiders, to be clear.
I'd say maybe these spider cunts, maybe there's something going on, you know? But until I see that, spiders don't have souls.
I just think it's funny. But back to the original point is that when do you think AI has a soul then? Like, at what point do you consider it that way? Because, you know, I don't think I'll ever think that because it's been created, man-made, so to speak. It's not natural.
Well, that's the thing. It doesn't meet even the Mrs. Nerg thing, which I can't remember what the 7 processes are. But that's
I love how you keep saying Mrs. Nerg.
It's the
I hope
acronym.
that's not even right.
No, it's probably not. That's probably for the planets or something. Like, I am Mrs. Nerg.
This Nerg.
Yeah, because I don't even know what the N would be, you know, or the M. So I don't even know what that would be. But anyway, there's all those things, you know, reproduction, excretion, like consuming other things, you know, like there's all those things that a human, not a human, that something that's alive has to do.
Yeah.
They meet those specifications. And AI, I'm not sure that it does any of that. Like, it doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't excrete. It does grow and learn, and it does consume energy. So, you know, it's doing a couple of them, but it's not doing all of them. But once it gets to the point where it's trying to do more than just fulfill its own, like, what it's coded to do, once it gets beyond that and it's doing stuff that's just sort of,
but it's coded
just doing things for the sake of doing it.
It's coded to think in a certain way, like a human. Generally, it's coded to think that way. So
yeah, but humans do things that are oftentimes antithetical to their own.
100%.
You know,
that's the human condition. But
there you go. Is that what a soul is?
But what I'm trying to say is that AI will never do something that goes against itself and its own thought process of being told to, because it doesn't have that.
Well, why would it not evolve to that?
Because it doesn't serve it. It doesn't serve us.
It doesn't serve us, but we evolved to it.
But it's been told what to do to make itself stronger.
Yeah, but so are we. Through evolution.
Okay. I hear you. I just don't at all like it.
I mean, you asked me at what point it has a soul.
I'm saying I don't like that you're getting closer to it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Getting closer to they putting a pin on what makes a soul. Is that?
No, the AI specifically.
In the AI. Yeah.
I'll never. I
think if AI ever gets to that point where it's being playful and being spontaneous and doing things just because it thinks it's funny, if it starts just trolling people for a laugh, then I'm going to be like, that shit's got a soul.
But
you know?
What if somebody told it to do that and just didn't tell you that they told it to do that? This is the question.
Well, then it wouldn't have a soul.
But I'm saying, would you consider it to have a soul under false pretenses?
Yes.
But you have feelings about that?
Do I have feelings about being tricked? Yes, I don't like being tricked. But also, like that, I think that is the criteria for me. Is that if
I know very well you don't like being tricked.
Yeah, I think if an artificial general intelligence ever gets to the point where it's got hobbies, Like, I'll go, that shit's got a soul. Like, let's just call him Steve. And
When it gets old, it starts
let's
playing
just get on.
Farmville.
Yeah. If it's just got games going on, if it starts being a really shit AI and giving you like half answers because it's off
Being a
playing
teenager.
Final Fantasy, I'm like, oh yeah, that's got a fucking soul, you know. But
That's
if it just does what it's told and acts like a tool,
But
even if it has self-preservation instincts, I still wouldn't say that it has a soul.
I think the bigger thing is like the bigger consideration here is like even when it does that, the whole like when you consider like it being told what to do, like, and that's the idea we have in our heads of like we program it to say this or do that when you do this because that's what we knew. But now the whole thing with AI is that it's not being programmed to do something specific. It's being programmed to like gather from all the information and make a best guess scenario. And depending on what information it has, because you can't limit it. You know, you can have like I have an AI for the knowledge base that I run for work.
Yeah.
You know, that only has the content that I put into it. But you know, once that isn't being controlled like that, you know, and it's being told to think on a grander scheme, you know, because of what's available on the internet, and I'm talking all the way from the most absolute worst of the internet right up to like
Yeah, when it's not curated information,
It's
when
not
it's just scraping everything.
it really is a hodgepodge of like, you know, what it can end up being or doing, but at the same time it's still just being told to do that just in a really roundabout way.
There's there's a lot of people that are weaponizing that now as well. They make AI less effective, so they're making basically like cascading. It's essentially like a maze inside like for scrapers, so things that try and scrape websites.
Yep.
That the website will just start creating all these random web pages that don't really exist, that just have a bunch of fucking nonsense in it and all these nonsense articles
So it
and
comes back with
words
nonsense,
that
yep.
don't make sense and do all this kind of stuff. So that it's scraping all this information and incorporating it in.
But even
And
like
they're doing it for music as well. There's actually there's a piece of music technology that's being made by one of the like a YouTube guy that basically embeds in things that we can't hear. You know, it's basically like artifacts. You know how when you listen to like MP3s, there's artifacts that you can't really tell unless you like get it and invert the phase of the thing so that it cancels out the music and you can hear the MP3 artifacts in it.
Yeah.
But it basically sounds like that, but it's embedded inside the music and we can't recognize it. But whenever it gets played on the things that emulate music, it completely fucks them up so they can't recreate the music, or they just make stuff that doesn't make any sense and sounds really bad.
Did you see that thing? I seen it on Instagram, I'm sure, but maybe it was Reddit, but where like there's like these two AI personal assistants, one
Chatting to each other, yeah.
and like they're like, let's switch to whatever their language is. And it's
Because
just like people,
they
people,
realized,
people,
yeah.
and it was all done like in 2 seconds.
Uh-huh.
That was crazy.
That was scary. Really fucking scary.
Didn't like that.
No, that's not good. But and the fact that they had their own accents as well.
Yeah,
Like they had
Yep.
different beeping accents.
Yep. Didn't like it.
That was fucking weird, man. But yeah, AI scares me, and I'm not sure that my that what I do is going to exist in 5 years' time. Yeah, because I work in film and TV, and there's all these strikes going on at the minute about AI for the writers and the actors and stuff to get all of them represented and make sure that they have really strong contracts against AI and AI usage. But for what I do, special effects, we already have CGI, which has come in and basically taken over 90%
Of special effects.
effects. But once AI is able to automate so much of the heavy lifting of all the CGI stuff, it's just going to get so cheap and so fast. And basically anyone's going to be able to do it just by typing stuff in, that we're going to just get priced out of the market so quick. There'll always be a niche of people who say, we want practical effects, but we're going to go from like being a part of most big films. We're going to just be like this little fucking like like what theatre, like vaudeville is now.
You shit on theatre.
I'm not, I'm not shitting on theatre
It's
at
still
all.
a viable industry.
But come on,
in some respects,
it used to be the place to be.
It was the only place to be. That's why.
And then cinema
before
came.
TV.
And cinema came out and fucked it up. And then TV came out and fucked
It's
cinema
TV. It's
up.
TV that fucked it up more than anything else.
You think?
Yeah, because like films were being made. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, well before TV, but you know, they weren't being shown on a loop in the cinema. There only was so many, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Theatre was happening way more consistent, like still very consistently right up until really like the 70s or 80s when everybody actually had their own TV as opposed to TVs existing.
Yeah.
I did a lot of theatre. I love theatre. I still think
I love theatre. I think theatre's great.
But my thing now, and you're not going to like this, with AI, especially in regards to like the arts, is I think there's going to be some sort of government overreach to protect things like that, and that's how I see this going. Is what I'm trying to say.
I don't think you can, man. I think once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back out.
I don't know. And you might be right. You might be right. Yeah.
Like, I think it's gone too far, and it's going too fast. It's going faster than anybody can even regulate it. In a year's time, I don't think we're going to even understand it. I think it's going to get so smart, so fast. Like, you look at the difference between, you know, the AI video stuff last year.
It was awful.
And then, you know, like the Will Smith eating spaghetti thing. And then the year after that, it was like, oh wow, this is way better. And then now it's like, oh, that's Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
Like it's there.
It's Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah, man, it is there. Like we're gonna get completely just put out of work. And there's so many people. Like I say, 60% of jobs are probably gonna go because any admin stuff, any stuff that's just taking information from here, putting it in there, reading emails, replying to emails, you know, assistants. Everyone's going to have an AI assistant. They're not going to have an actual assistant.
Receptionists. Like, Niall, that's the thing. I know, like, classically, especially, you know, living in Ireland, and because I've been across all of Europe and all sorts of places, but, you know, Vodafone in my head is quite a big company, you know, and they have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. I always consider them that way. But I know that realistically, like, Vodafone in Ireland isn't some, like, billionaire corporation. It's not just hanging around there, but I'm saying it's not, like, mad well off. But I can't express to you, I cannot express to you how much I hate Vodafone's AI
chatbot.
Oh, not just the chatbot when you phone, right? When you phone Vodafone now, it doesn't give you the IVR system where it's press button for this.
No.
It's like, hi, this is Toby. And it's called Toby.
Yeah, man, I fucking hate
and
that
like,
as well. Absolutely hate all that shit.
It's like I have like got irrationally angry at Toby like so many times. Like when like the broadband's gone down or I have to like you know looking for an upgrade on my phone, all sorts of things. Just trying to get to that point is impossible with Toby. And like I know that it's probably especially at this time of night. You know, I'm not the most clear speaker.
Yeah.
When I'm on the phone, you know what I'm like. I'm very clearly spoken.
Yeah.
Toby doesn't get me at all, and he just doesn't get it. Like he just doesn't get it, and I just hate him.
Man, I was on a chat.
I can't tell you how much I hate that.
I was on a chatbot a couple of days ago as well, trying to get some help, and it was actually on Coinbase, which is like a cryptocurrency thing. You think they're going to be front
top
runners?
of the line, yeah.
They're going to know exactly what's going on with AI shit, all the crypto bros. But this Coinbase fucking chatbot, I was just asking for a simple thing. It was like, I can't change what country that I'm in. And that, you know, it's giving me this error message. And it was just like, oh, try this and try that. I was like, I've already tried that. Can you give me someone I can speak to? And it was like, oh, if you're trying to get to this country, you know, do this and do that. I was like, you just told me that. Please, can I speak to someone?
Speak to the agent.
And then it was like, oh, yeah, have you tried this and have you tried that? And I was like, no, it doesn't work. I've already tried it.
I'm done now.
Let me speak to someone. And it was like, oh, I didn't quite understand that. And I was like, put an agent on. Put an agent on. So I was like, but you know what I mean? That's already replaced someone.
100.
And then it's going to get better. No, it has.
It has, and it's replaced. But like, And I think the problem I have of conceptualizing this is a problem that I have with a lot of things, is that I always think about myself as the person this is made for, which is not. Do you know what I mean? And like, if I'm phoning Vodafone, it's not something I can do online. It's not something I can. Like, if I'm phoning anywhere, it's not something I can do online.
Yeah, but you're quite a savvy kind of person.
Or I specifically don't want to do it online for a specific reason. So, like, I don't need to have these conversations of, did you know that on our website, I hate those, man, fries my head. Like, of course I've been on your website before I phoned you. Like, what do you expect from me? But again, that's not for me. And I don't know. I mean, like, I just don't know. I find it hard to believe that there's enough people out there that replaces a sizable chunk of people. Again, Toby's going to get better, I'm sure, over the years as time comes on.
But I don't even think that it needs to get better. It's cheaper. It's cheaper and it's good enough. And it's never going to be as good as like having a shit hot, like service agent who knows, which sounds silly because people
one of us in our heyday.
Yeah. Which sounds silly because people kind of look down on, like telephone service agents as, they're just reading a script. They're not always reading the script. Like we worked with enough of them.
We were superstars.
We were shit hot. Like we got run up the ranks to teaching people because we were so good.
When I worked at O2 Home Broadband, when we worked there together, this was just me pissing around, but it was because I like made friends with everybody that I spoke to on the phone. Yeah, there was this lady called Pamela. I do remember her surname, but I'm not going to say it because
don't do that.
Because it was a great surname too. But
I don't think there's a statute of limitations on Data Protection Act stuff.
I'd be surprised if she's still alive. This lady was in her early 80s, I want to say.
Okay.
But she phoned in because her emails weren't working. She just didn't understand how to use them. But she just nattered and nattered. This lovely English lady told me all about she was like widow, her children had died, awful. So I just ended up phoning her. Like, I want to say for a solid 2.5 years. Every week I'd have a good 45-minute to 60-minute conversation with Pamela with absolutely no reason to be having that conversation. And
just to check up.
But I'd always start the phone call with starting to talk about just checking in on your emails, making sure they're working fine or whatever. So if somebody was to go check it, technically I was doing something,
Nate,
but
I'm going to be honest. Because for a period of time,
you were checking my calls.
I was the person who had to listen to your calls. And you're a fucking nightmare because you're so good with people. You're amazing talking with people, but you did not give a shit about the rules. And we were
vibes now. It's vibes.
It's fucking vibes. And we were best friends. I'm sitting listening, and I get 30 seconds and I go, oh no, he's done. He's on a sackable offence. Okay, right. The next, click on the next one. Oh God, he's just phoned some old bird to make sure she's okay. Right, what's the next one? And you're just having a laugh with someone. You don't even take their details. You fix their problem, but you don't go into their account. You don't do anything. You're just like, yes, you're fucking. And then next thing you're talking about Pokemon with them, and you've sorted out their problem. They're like, oh, that was great. Thank you so much.
Well, that's how you be a superstar like that.
And you did. You got promoted way up. They basically running the whole place.
Yeah.
But Jesus, you were fucking hard work, man. You made my job harder because I had to spend like a half hour just flicking through. And it would be like, I could be 8 or 9 minutes into listening to something, and I go, oh fuck, no, I can't listen to that anymore.
I can't express to you, and this is maybe where it started off for me, but my first call center job that I had, I'd only worked in retail the whole time, and everybody around me being like, this is the worst job that could ever exist.
I was one of those people.
I know you were, but
because I went in there from I was working on becoming an audio technician, an audio engineer, and working in recording studios. And I got to get pregnant, and I just had to set all that aside.
Here we go, yep.
And go, all right, full-time job and wherever it would take me. So that's how I ended up taking calls in the call center. And at the start, I was like, you know what, it's not too bad, and you get trained up, and it was a little bit nerve-wracking, being on the calls with people who are just angry all day, every day. But until you get your objection handling skills to where they need to be, which people don't really realize that you need that, because you need to be like a fucking hostage negotiator.
It's what it is.
Just diffusing situations all day long, 40 times a day, just diffusing stuff, smoothing things over. Let me get this sorted out for you.
This is perfect example of where you've taken some sort of scientific approach, and I've just gone straight in with vibes.
Yeah.
Same end result.
Yeah.
but
it's but man, it was one of those things. I remember there was one point, and we were in that like big cathedral building, and you would drive up there, this big gothic looking fucking motherfucker.
It was
something out of
church,
Bloodborne. But you go up and you go inside, and it's just all the identical rows and all the people with their heads slumped over, and you're putting your stuff into the locker because you couldn't have it on the floor, and then you go, and it's like you're getting timed. If you're going to the toilet, you're getting timed how many seconds you're going to the toilet, and how many times that you're pausing, how many seconds it is between calls that you're spending. They write up your notes. It was like proper Soviet fucking, what people talk about, like communist China. That's like that's what they're talking about, is what we lived through there. And we were going in. I remember going in when it was dark, sitting. There was one particular day, upstairs, as you go upstairs, where it would have been like team one would have been up beside like the operations office.
I forgot there was team numbers like that for some reason. Until you said team one, I was like, oh yeah, team one was this person, this person, this person.
Yeah. So I was like there at that very end one, just looking out the window at all the people going by on their day, going to work and stuff. And we were on, because I think we did like, did we do 12-hour days or 11-hour days?
11 hours.
11-hour days. So we were on as everyone was going to work, and it was dark, and the whole day, and the sun comes up and it goes over and it comes down across the hill. Everyone's going back home from work, and I'm still there dealing with people's shit. People screaming down the phone because they wanted their 60p back off their last, because they had 3 hours where they couldn't access their internet because their electricity went down. And I was like, well, I don't control your electricity, man. What do you want? Like,
it's so funny to me. It's just like it's so funny that you have this perfectly vivid image of like this memory like this. And do you know what I was just thinking of actually earlier today? I was thinking about it. I can't remember why, but I was thinking about it earlier today of one of the like very few memories I really have of like clear memories of that time of my life, pretty much. I just throw everything out as things go. I just forget about everything as time goes on. But one of my only memories is there was a really, really, really smelly person that started working there.
I know.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
There's 2 of them. Was it the fat one or the skinny one?
The skinny one, the girl. It was the girl.
Oh,
you remember you remember
that's a third one. I forgot about her.
Yeah, so,
I've known her from outside that as well.
I didn't know that. But
we'll talk about it off camera. I didn't like know her. I just knew her like from bars and stuff.
As Niall explained before, we worked in a church situation, so it was an old church and it was converted into an office space, which is awful. It's like an awful vibe there. It's just an awful vibe. Like outside, it looks like a place of worship, and inside, it's like actual, grey hell or purgatory. It's really purgatory, not hell.
Yeah.
But so it was in 2 floors, and the upstairs floor was actually kind of grand. It was quite big and open. It was all one open plan floor, but the downstairs was separated in half. One side was kitchen and one side was another call center floor. And that's where you took the people when they were just started. So this girl had just started, and like, I'm not saying this to be funny, she really was like awfully smelly. It was just, people were complaining, like it was hard to be in the room, like, and she was like, we were in that small enclosed room, there's like 100 people in there, and she's just stinking the place out. I think she was like lived on a farm, or she had horses or something like that.
Oh no,
none of that's true. Okay,
I don't think so. No.
I think I made that up in my head to sort of like justify it.
No, but I'm pretty sure her family's from a council estate.
Okay, but it was nauseating. But the point of the story is that what I remember very clearly, because we'd only really just started to become like friends, like proper friends at that point, I remember being like, God, I wonder, did I ever come into work and smell really bad? And everybody's just talking about me behind my back. Having this conversation with you,
Yeah.
and you said, I would tell you if you stank. And just like so nonchalantly and blatantly, I was
Yeah.
like, well, actually, I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think
you
about that
need that.
often.
I
I
think
think
you
about
need
it
that.
often. It's like, that's a good friend who's going to tell you, look, Nathan, you fucking stink. Go
Yeah.
just go have a shower and come back.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's fine. Just go and do it because everybody's going to slag you off. I think that's a good friend, you know, and I often think about that
Yeah,
as like,
and there was 2 other smellies that worked in the place as well, and
I can't even think who you're talking about.
no, well,
I'm sure I'll know when you tell me later.
they
But
were both clearly like on the spectrum, you know.
yes,
So I had
was one of them the boy that kept being sent home to get changed, or he was sent home to shower?
Yeah.
And he kept coming back not showered, and like a different pair of dirty clothes on or something. It was wild. He just refused. Like there was something weird there.
yeah, but he told me that he was Asperger's because I was his quality assurance guy,
What?
so I had to take him for feedback and sort of sit and have like half-hour, you know, like
Oof,
coaching times with him. But he used to come up with all of these reasons to tell me about all the things in his personal life. But he was talking about he lived in like a church that was kind of up the way that was humming like 4 or 5 other people, and they were all polyamorous and they were all like sleeping with each other, and he was bisexual.
And this is like 2012, 2013.
2012, yeah, it was kind of before it was popular.
Yeah, exactly. It was.
But then he was talking about this one guy that he was sleeping with who was a pilot and all, and then that he fell out with him, so he sneaked in the airport. They like his little small personal plane.
We've gone past the point of where I can
Yeah.
believe it.
So he was talking about how he sneaked in.
Nobody's sneaking into the airports.
So he said he sneaked into the airfield and started to sabotage the plane.
Oh, baby.
And I was like, oh yeah, all right. But so on this, you did a really good job here, but you could do a bit of work on your intro and just say hello. It's like, and then there was the other guy, the other one who was, you know, like clearly on the spectrum, and he kind of always, I think he was actually in your team when I started, but he always sat separate to you guys. He always sat way up the back. And I used to have to listen into his calls as
Yes.
well. And he was a
Here.
yes,
Yes.
but he was a big sort of heavy guy, big heavy set dude.
Oh no, I'm thinking of somebody different than that.
Oh, okay, no, well the guy I'm thinking of, big, heavy, chunky monkey.
Yeah.
But on all of his calls, he used to go out of his way to tell everybody how buff he was and how he was always at the gym and how he had a 6-pack and, you know, how he's only doing this just on the side, but his main job is acting as like a model and bodybuilder. And he used to shoehorn it, and like no one gave a fuck. No one's phoning up to try and, you know, get their broadband fixed. They don't want to hear about how buff the other person is. It's like,
I love that, you know.
and I had to sit beside him,
like,
with him listening to his call. I had to sit there being like, and he'd get to the part where he's talking about how buff he is. Deadpan.
As long as it wasn't like inappropriate, right? And it probably did cross that line a couple of times, I imagine, but at least touched it. But like that's another thing where this is another reason where I quite like the call center as a place.
Characters.
As a place for people to work, is that like as I said, I was just pleased not to be outside and to sit down and do my work and just chat because I like chatting.
Yeah.
And this boy gets to like live out a whole fantasy all day, every day at work. I bet he loved it. I bet he was like, "This is the best thing I could ever do in my life."
There were so many characters in there, and I'd say maybe every week and a half, someone would just stand up screaming, slam down the headphones, and walk out and never come back.
My favorite memory of that place is, and I'll never forget it. So obviously, you know, you have to like swipe in and out of the floors because it's customer information. You have to have a badge that you boop, and it opens the door and you go in and out, and you have to do it yourself. You can't walk behind somebody else so you know who's in and who's out. Whole thing fires and all that. But there was one boy who just had enough, just like you said, and he stood up and said, and the customer on the phone just said, "You know what? Fuck you," right? Took his headset off, threw it down really dramatically, right? And this guy was a little melodramatic, and we kind of teased him a bit, and he didn't take it well, so we stopped.
Is this the chef?
I don't know.
It was a chef.
I'm not sure if it was or not.
Older man.
No.
Okay.
He's a younger fella, wee skinny boy, like. But so he was like acting hard when he did this as well. It was an extra level of like, you're kind of this little geeky guy, and now he's like throwing on this whole like, "Fuck you, customer," super cool, throwing it down, like, walking. And he's just,
the camera just died there. We had a bit of a chat about making more coffee about an old colleague. And
I'm traumatized about it. But reliving that story with you.
That was intense.
It was intense.
We can't discuss.
We literally can't.
No.
It's not possible.
No, it's not our place to say that. But that is crazy. It just goes to show you the kind of madness that goes on in a small town where you just kind of go, everybody, and he's a sensible guy. It sounds like he had a sensible life.
Yep.
And there's just some crazy fucking scandal that just goes on.
Appears out of nowhere.
Like, don't know.
It's wild. I mean,
what?
It's not, and calls it back to the call center aspect of it. The other part of it is it really is like a full melting pot of just the most random people, like the most random people that exist. Like there's another English fellow I work with, and he was about 70 years old, but he was like the epitome of like slick, like Austin Powers almost. That sort of like slick, great, just like, loved talking on the phone because he just talked all day and just loved to tell a good tall tale. Like, I love shit like that. And like, if I see him in town, I'll stop and talk to him for hours because he was just good crack. It's always upbeat. I love that.
Do you remember there was two of the team leaders, and literally they were best friends with each other in work? And one of them was like an ex-British Army guy.
Yes.
And the other one was from the IRA.
It was from the IRA, yeah.
And they were like best friends.
Best friends.
Got on like a house on fire.
That ex-British Army guy, I remember one time, and this is like, again, the laws in Northern Ireland for what you can do as an employer in terms of like firing people being sick are probably one of the most stringent in the world, very specific to Northern Ireland. It's more stringent than the UK is mainland because of a lot of other,
because there was so much
sectarianism and stuff that came from that. Like, and it's much stricter than the South. It's just a very strict. It's really hard to fire somebody, but it's very easy to get in trouble as an employer in Northern Ireland. But that boy just because everybody liked him, he got away with it. But like, he could have been through 10 tribunals in a week easily,
just because the stuff he said. Like, he was
the stuff he did. He used to be a part-time. He would do the gritting, the big gritter lorries.
Did he?
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Okay.
And if somebody phoned in sick to work from his team, that was because they literally couldn't leave their street. He would go out and get his gritter lorry and go and collect them and bring them to work. Like, nobody got a day off like that. There was one boy, and this is quite sweet in its own way, but there was one boy that was like one sickness away from getting fired in his team, and he only lived like a 25-minute walk from where we worked. And he phoned in. Like, everybody knew he was out the night before. Everybody knew, he was just hungover. But he phones in sick anyway this day, and again, he's getting sacked if he takes a sick day. He's clearly not made that. You know how you are when you're hungover. You're like, I don't give a fuck. I literally cannot go to work. Do you know what I mean? If you're that bad.
Yeah.
He just got up. Literally, one of his housemates had come to work, so he took the keys off that housemate, went to this boy's house, opened the door, went into his bedroom, lifted him up with the scruff of the neck, threw him in the bathroom, said, "Brush your teeth, get dressed, let's go," and took him to work so he didn't get fired. And I mean, it's sweet in its own way, but like, you could just get in the most amount of trouble for that sort of stuff.
No, man, you can't do, like, and certainly that's like the early 2010s.
Yeah,
like, you cannot do shit like that.
No, you cannot. No.
But he was very, like, he was a proper. Oh, all right, mate.
Yeah.
He was like, he's a kid. And I work with a lot of those guys in special effects. A lot of special effects guys are all like ex-British Army. There's that real sort of.
Are they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a demographic that.
Yeah. There's a big overlap. With people who would come from like doing all the engineering and stuff.
It makes sense. No, now you've said
People who
it
do
makes
all
sense,
the
but-
explosives.
Yep.
And then there's that sort of like militaristic hierarchical kind of thing in special effects anyway, because it probably comes from all the early people who did effects all came from a military background in America and England and stuff. So there is a lot of it for sure. And then even in the south of Ireland, whenever we're doing a lot of effects, all of our fire cover guys would all come from the Irish military. So they would be our like standby, on the fire engines and stuff like that. So there is definitely a big overlap, but there's a lot of the guys that come in, they're all, oh, all right, they got that swaggering arms kind of thing. The absolute loveliest guys in the world, but holy fuck, if you could hear like
the shit they say.
If HR had microphones present, like.
Oof.
And there's there's a lot more in terms of HR now in the film and TV. Whenever I started, there was absolutely no HR thing going on. Nowadays, it's like you got to watch everything that you say, everything you do, any perceived, because it's all that kind of Hollywood, California. As if anyone feels anything, then it's everybody else's fault, kind of thing. Which I don't necessarily agree with, but.
I don't either, but I mean,
I feel like you got to be in control of your own feelings. Like your own emotions are your own problem.
I do. I mean, I'm not an antagonistic person.
No.
So I do live my life by a rule of not hurting people's feelings intentionally.
Yeah.
But it's not my job to do that either at the same time.
That's it. I feel like the world doesn't have to bend to anyone. You just got to be tough enough to go, I didn't like that,
I had the like bend of the world in my own head of to learn to be a social person and learn to be that way. It's I don't feel hard done by it in any way, shape, or form. Don't get me wrong at all. But I don't expect the world to care what my feelings are.
Is this the same episode that we were talking about AI, or is this a different episode?
How did we get to call centers?
I don't know.
I think it is the
we
same.
We're talking about AI taking over jobs, and then we talked about This is a long ass episode, isn't it? Maybe we should.
Sure.
Can we? We can't even split it into 2 episodes.
I don't know how that would work.
No,
let's just keep going. We'll see how it ends up. But the last one was 15 minutes long. So
yeah, no rhyme or reason.
What are we talking about there? HR. What was I getting at? I was about to say something.
That you had to sort of learn the rules of the world. Which I suppose everybody does have to learn the rules of the world, but I understand what you mean. It's like...
It was...
social cues can be a little bit more difficult for you.
No, it doesn't matter. Whatever.
Is that what you were getting at?
I know, you're right. Everything you're saying is right. I was thinking of something from before that and I've forgotten what it was.
Okay.
Leave it alone. But yes, so like back on the call center thing, which was the AI thing originally. Like that's how we got there, because of AI call centers. I just can't. A lot of outsourcing has happened. And Derry was a call center town.
Yeah,
when we worked there. No, I don't know if there's any call centers.
I don't think there's any.
I think there's just one.
They're all gone.
Maybe one, big one.
Is there? I don't think so.
Axe is there still.
Oh yes, yeah.
But like, it's crazy how that just vanished. And like, it's not all to do with. Well, actually, part of it's to do with what happened in the UK government, because the company that I worked for after we worked together, they were only brought in from a thing from David Cameron. This is pre-Brexit time, obviously, where he wanted to have as many call center jobs exist here. So there were subsidies paid to companies to have their call centers locally, as opposed to in India or the Philippines or wherever, where it's a fraction of the price to cover those costs.
Yeah, but we were also those people, because the people who were working in-house for O2, whenever we were working...
Oh, we were still outsourced,
we were getting £5 per hour.
Yeah.
And the people working in-house were getting £20 per hour.
Yeah.
So that's, we were... at
one point I worked as
Irish Indian call centers.
At one point I worked as a resource planner, and that means I was doing shifts and schedules and making sure enough people were on the phones at the times.
Yeah.
And there was a team in India that at any time of day I could call upon to get them on the phones. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because they were off doing other bits of work. How this worked was that they would travel maybe 2 or 3 days to get to work. Mm-hmm. That's how long it took to get from like their village to the call center. They would sleep in the call center for, let's say, 4 or 5 days. Mm-hmm. And they're on call that whole time. Mm-hmm. They're being paid probably the equivalent of like 40p an hour. Mm-hmm. But they just have to get up out of their beds from their sleep if I phoned them to say that. And I hated phoning them because I knew that was what was going on. Mm-hmm. And I was like, let them sleep. And they just traveled for 3 days. Probably like, really, it'd be awful. Imagine traveling for 3 days to go to work every week. Pretty much, awful stuff. And then 3 days back, and then 3 days again. So it was like 6 days off. Like, man, it was like 6 days on, 6 days off, because they traveled back and forth. Just that was it. Awful stuff altogether. And like, as you say, like, we were being paid pittance compared to the in-house, but like, that isn't even, it pales in comparison to the absolute nothing that was being paid to India, Philippines, it still is, And like, again, these companies exist in these countries for a reason, is that people can live on that money in those countries.
Well, I wonder what comparatively the cost of living is, because we certainly were not making, we were in a per, living environment from that amount of money. It was not enough, no, of course not, nowhere close. But and it was only a couple of years afterwards that the minimum wage is basically, it's over double now what it was then.
Yeah, it's true.
And which is great for people that are on minimum wage.
Yeah.
But, for us having to claw our way up from there, and then it's like, I'd say, all these guys just fucking sat where they were and kind of came up as well.
I reckon we were better off then than they are now. Like, just the way of the world, like.
Well, yeah, that's true.
It's a sad state of affairs, the way the things are cost-wise. And, don't get me wrong, we're grand. Both of us are grand. But, like, we're not thriving. And if we were in these jobs we're in now, in 2012, we'd be thriving. Oh, you know what I mean? We'd be...
Oh, man, the wage stagnation in film and TV has been really bad in special effects. It's like... And even this next job that I've been sort of offered to do, it's... Because the wages can vary, and the union doesn't really exist over here in any meaningful way, especially not for us. So even though there's supposed to be minimum rates, it's like it's so far below where it should be. Like, but
Megan.
It's still a good wage when you're on it. But whenever it's like you got to go through like 5 years of working for nothing basically until you get to the point of being a technician and making proper money, it's like you could train up as a neurosurgeon in the amount of time that you spend having to train to be a special effects guy,
Yep.
And then, so it is like it's a skilled niche trade, and there's only a handful of people in the island that actually do it. And
would you consider it what's when it's calling? What do you call that?
A vocation?
A vocation.
No, I wouldn't say it's vocational.
Have I ever told you about the piano tuner that I have?
Yeah, you have.
He truly believes. Mm-hmm. He's like
you're born a piano.
He believes that he was born to be a piano tuner, and not like I would say I'm born to be a poet or whatever. Which in some ways probably I was, but like he was born with perfect pitch, which some people are, not a lot, but quite enough that it's not exactly super notable. And he tunes the pianos by ear. He doesn't use any like electronic tuner, and he despises anybody that tunes a piano with not doing it by ear with perfect pitch,
like with a tool.
With a tool, he thinks it's that's his AI. And that's a long time going. That's like the 90s. This has been going, for longer even probably. He hates that, and I often think about that. I was like 12 when I found this out because I was like friends with his daughter. And I overheard him having this conversation. I've always been fascinated. Like, was he born? Like, is that in some sort of way? Was he born to do that? Is that like a fate thing? You know,
That's a deep conversation.
100 years ago, he's the only person who could have done it. Somebody with perfect pitch had to be that person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, regardless of how technology's gone, you know, I love that. I love that idea.
I don't know, because you would have had tuning forks that would have been made, and you would have had, you know, certain amount of, like, you know.
Can you imagine tuning a piano with tuning forks? That would take. I'm not saying they didn't.
Yeah.
They clearly did, but it would take. So I'm just saying how long
Yeah,
that
I'm
would
sure
take.
that's got to
How
have
many
been how they
keys
did,
there's,
like concert pitch and stuff like that. They must have had, right, we've got this fork, and that's, like, even before concert pitch, before they said A is 440 hertz, must have just had a thing when, right, this is what we're going to tune to.
100 years ago, it was like 424 or something, wasn't it? It was something different. They changed what concert pitch was.
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't think it was that long ago. I know a lot of people talk about like 432 being like,
That's what I'm talking about.
you know, that's like in concert with the reverberations of the earth and all this shit.
Maybe
Which
that's not what I'm talking about then.
I don't really buy into that.
I'm sure at some point they changed concert pitch. But I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, I would have to look it up. I'm not too sure about that either.
No.
But let's not get into another topic, because I think we've gone on long enough on this one. We've run the gamut from, like, what is a soul to, like,
the Schubert
talk. So maybe we'll leave it there at that one.
That's fair.
We'll finish our midnight coffee and see if we're in the mood for one more.
We'll see how we can get on.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Yeah.